You know I'm right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, entertainment, and news. Joe, I'm very excited for our guest today because the two of us, of course, are Staten Islanders, and this guest has some ties to the island. So we'll definitely touch on some of that, of course.
He does. According to his bio, he's lived everywhere but Brooklyn, and I was born in Brooklyn. So, so he's gonna have to figure out a way to cross that off the list eventually. Also, he likes dressing up as a cannoli on Mulberry Street, which is something that I've done before. He's a huge fan of some of the local area teams. So we'll get to talk about that with him very, very shortly. But he is a longtime reporter for NY1's here in New York City, where we're from. So we'd like to introduce Roger Clark to the show. Roger, thanks for doing this with us. How are you today?
Hey guys, thanks. I'm honored. It's good to finally do it. It's been kind of crazy the last couple of weeks, but thank you for the opportunity. It's awesome.
So Roger, before we really get into anything here, I got to ask you, because you spent some time on Staten Island. Tell me your favorite pizza place, maybe your favorite bakery, and your thoughts on, I guess, Ralph's Ices.
Yeah, I mean, well, like the Clark side of my dad's side of the family there before the bridge, from Mariners Harbor, Van Pelt Avenue, Van Name, they all grew up over there. Everybody went to Fort Richmond High School. And when I was a little kid, I lived there. Sadly, my parents split up and I got shipped off to Queens when I was 7 years old. But all my aunts and uncles still lived there. My grandma lived there. We spent a lot of time playing wiffle ball in the streets of Eltingville before there were cars in the 70s, And I mean, all right, pizza wise, this is always an issue. I'm a Joe and Pat's guy. Okay. I know it's always the Joe and Pat's versus the Nino's. But I don't know what it is. Joe and Pat's is just, for me, is it. Ralph's, I'm boring. I like the cannoli flavor ices because I just love cannolis in general.
Yeah,
so when I go to Ralph's, I get more cannoli.
That's right.
Which is like, it's kind of ridiculous and predictable, but that's what I want,
Yeah, so I think Joe and Pat's popular, Danino's is popular. I personally love Lee's Tavern. I love that very thin style, bar style pizza. When it comes to Ralph's, usually it's graham cracker or red velvet, not spumoni, but or cannoli rather. But my cousin likes cannoli, and my mom, she loves spumoni, and she also loves jelly ring too. So, the next time you go there, you got to try it.
Ugh, jelly ring.
It's always been
jelly
an
ring
issue,
is
though.
Awesome. How do you not like jelly ring?
Yeah, no, but it's funny because once I moved to Queens, and then we have a place in Queens that's pretty famous too called Lemon Ice King of Corona. And when I was a kid, my Uncle Charlie, who was my dad's brother, who's like really Staten Island, they all shipped down to Florida in the 70s for some strange reason. They went down there, but we'd fight about it. Because I'd be like, I don't know, I think Lemon Ice King might be better than Ralph's. And he's like, what are you freaking crazy? Like he would like scream. He would scream at me, and I'd be like, Uncle Charlie, it's not a world issue here. It's ISIS. But it was funny.
Yeah, it's a major point of discussion here in New York. It's where the best pizza is, the best desserts are. A lot of places everywhere, and going to Florida, that's still a thing. Everybody from here is still going to Florida.
They were crazy. Yeah, I mean, they went down. I mean, like, I was a little kid, but him and my grandmother literally moved next door to each other in like Hialeah, Florida, and he worked as a cop at the airport. And my grandmother was growing oranges in her backyard. It was crazy. It was the weirdest thing. So it was a lot different back then. Like it was just a different. Like I remember going to visit him when I was a kid, and I was like, where are we? Like my cousins. It was just weird. And all those guys, all the cousins, like they all grew up in Florida, but they still have little Staten Island like touches to them, like they're Jets fans and Mets fans, but yet they somehow wound up in Florida. It's weird.
They were ahead of the trend. A lot of people going down there now.
Yeah, no, it's like but I mean, back then it was fun. The only thing I have a really lousy memory of visiting them. We went to like the local playground, and my feet. I think I had sandals, which maybe this is why I never wear sandals ever. And I was attacked by red ants in the playground.
Ooh, wow.
Like it was the craziest thing. I was standing there like, la, da, 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 like, I'm having such fun. I'm at the playground. And all of a sudden I was like, ow, 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 ah. And it was freaking, like, it was crazy. I could actually say I've been attacked by Reddits, so.
There you go. Scary stuff. So Roger, you're growing up, you're in New York City, making the trips down to Florida, but what for you made you want to pursue a career in journalism?
I mean, originally, it's funny. I mean, you guys mentioned sports. I mean, originally that was my plan. I wanted to be a sportscaster, and I kind of veered off once I got to college. But I just always loved watching the news, watching sports broadcasts. As a Mets fan, we had like Ralph Kiner and Bob Murphy and Lindsey Nelson, who were classic. And then I really looked up to Marv Albert, Bob Costas, our local guys, Len Berman back then, some of the local broadcasters who did like your basic like sports update, let's go to the videotape, Warner Wolf, all these old guys. These guys might be before your time, but it was just, I saw what they were doing and I was like, wow, that looks really cool. And I always could talk. Like my dad called me motor mouth when I was a kid. Like I never shut up. So it just seemed like a natural like extension of my personality. Plus I could write well. That was really all I could do, talk and write. So what do you do with that? You might as well be a news guy, I guess,
Yeah, it always starts out, you want to play sports, and then you realize you're not athletic enough to do it. Can't do it professionally. So you want to do it, and you want to write about it, you want to follow it, and you want to cover it. We actually had Len Berman on, Nick and I, once upon a time, and he was great with us. And we've had a lot of Syracuse alumni on with us.
Such as Len Berman.
Such as Len Berman and more guys from Q's. And it just seems like there are those few schools. Syracuse is one of them. You go there for communications. You go there if you want to be a sportscaster. Obviously, you went a slightly different path. But how did you ultimately land on that decision to go to Syracuse? And how did you stay active when you were on campus in terms of internships? Obviously, that program up there is immaculate, and it's one of the best in the country, and there's stuff for you to do. So how did you keep yourself active on campus?
Yeah, I mean, it was what got me to go there really was it's crazy. And I remember I had a subscription to Sports Illustrated back then. There was an article, I think it was my junior year of high school. It's funny, me and Len Berman went to we both went to Stuyvesant High School and Syracuse. So Len Berman as well. But I'm thinking about colleges, where am I going to go? My grades, I was like cruising with an 85. I wasn't like, I was surrounded by eggheads at Stuyvesant. I was like, what am I going to do? I pick up Sports Illustrated and there's an article and it was like Sportscaster U, Syracuse. And of course I knew Syracuse from Jim Brown and the Big East and everything, but I didn't know that much about it as a university. And then I read Marv Albert went there, Bob Costas, Dick Stockton. I'm like, are you kidding me? I got to go there. It was that, like, it really was that simple. And I also applied to like Notre Dame, which is like typical because back then I liked Notre Dame football. So I was like, oh yeah, sure. I want to go to Notre Dame so I can go to games, But when it came down to it, the only school I got, I also applied to Northwestern, which has a very strong journalism program. But the legend is that I was typing up on a real typewriter. This is frightening. My application. It was due the next day and I had to get it in overnight mail. So I'm typing it and my mother's in the other room and she's like, dinner, Roger. And I'm like, Ma, I'm doing this, okay? You got to eat. Ma, I'm trying to get this done. You got to eat. Whatever, bring it. So she brings me a plate, like a bowl of pasta with sauce. So I go, literally the first fork in it. Pasta falls off on the application, sauce all over the place. I didn't get into Northwestern. Now, was that really the reason I didn't get into Northwestern? I don't know.
Could be.
I think you were destined to go to Syracuse instead.
I think that was it. It was God. He was controlling the pasta and the sauce onto the application.
It was the Syracuse spaghetti. Just point you in that direction.
No, I mean, and really, it's funny. The only reason, I had a buddy, Aaron Jaffe. We were really competitive. We used to play stickball against each other, basketball. He got into Northwestern early decision. So, of course, I'm like, I got to get it, So he still to this day holds it like over my head. Like, yeah, well, I got in, I didn't,
You got into Syracuse and Syracuse is just as good.
Great. No, I had a great experience there. I mean, I have, you guys mentioned, I did kind of lose my way a little there. You talked about internships and stuff like that. Like I got to college and I was so busy in high school. Like I was on all these sports teams. I sucked at all of them. School newspaper, yearbook, then back in the neighborhood in Queens. I was in a bowling league and a basketball league. I mean, I was always running around like a maniac. So when I got to college, I kind of was like, you don't have to do stuff like that much. So, I went to class. I never missed a class, because I felt like I'm paying the money, so I better, right? But I did lose my way a little bit. I could have did. I always tell like young journalists now, like, make sure you do those internships, make sure you get involved with societies, and really kind of take advantage of the situation, because I have to confess, I think sometimes it set me back a little bit. I started a punk band with a guy on my dorm floor, and we played at like parties and stuff for 4 years, and so it was one of those things. I mean, I think it all worked out in the end, but definitely sometimes if I look back, I wish I was a little bit more focused.
So Roger, I was going to walk us through, in college, was there anybody there that we would know that you kind of became close with?
Yeah, actually, Mike Torico was my assistant sports director, and he famously, I did try and get on the air at WAER radio, which was the famous, college sports station. And he said, he told me my New York accent was too strong. And he said, go home over the summer and work on it. Like that was going to help going back to Queens. And be like, hey, my friends. Yeah, that ought to work really well. But anyway, it was funny. And I'm an idiot because I put the tape that I made for him was on the B side or the other side of a cassette that was that had taped the Sex Pistols, never mind the Bollocks on. So I remember I went back in the fall and I was like, can I have my Sex Pistols tape? Which is like probably not the best way to get ahead in the business, but yeah. But Torico, yeah, now I see him on TV all the time. I mean, he's amazing. I mean, but he did it right. He was already on the local Syracuse affiliate doing sports like when he was a junior there. So I mean, that's a good example of someone who actually like really was like, look, I'm going to do this. And I give him a lot of credit. He's great at what he does, hard worker, and it worked out for him. So Torico is there. So Ian Eagle, I know. Actually, Ian Eagle, I know from Forest Hills, from my old neighborhood. We played junior basketball together. He grew up in Forest Hills. He's good friends with my sister. Really nice guy. And so, but it's funny. I really didn't bump into him at Syracuse that often, but I knew him from Queens. Really great guy.
How about that? So for you, what was your first job coming out of college? And then kind of walk us through, the next few years there, or until you ended up getting to NY1 and how that opportunity came about for you.
Yeah, I started in radio because honestly, kind of like Mike Torico said, my TV tape was really bad coming out of Syracuse. So, I was kind of nasally and even more, and not a little more nasally than I am now. But I was able to eventually. So I got back to New York. I got back home and I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? And I started sending tapes out. We called them tapes back then, to like every possible, like, Flagstaff, Arizona, East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. The one that finally hired me, it took me I was working as a secretary in Midtown, and going in with a shirt and tie, 9-to-5 job, eating 2 hot dogs and a pretzel for lunch every day, taking the subway. I was like, wow, man, this really stinks. I didn't go to college for this. But finally, in like the next April or May, I got a call from a tiny station in Oneonta, New York, where the state college is. And they offered me the afternoon news job. And that was the first time I left home and lived by myself. So that was how it started. And I was there for 2 years. I took a 1-year break and worked at a liquor distributor as a secretary again. I don't know what it was with me with wanting to be a secretary, but I almost became a liquor salesman because I got along with my boss and he tried to bring me in. He was like, it was funny. His name was Jim Mingarelli, but he was known as Mingo. He was just this big guy from upstate New York. He was Mingo, right? And he'd be like, Raj, you should be, what? He'd be like, once Bob Moskowitz kicks it, you should take his territory. And I was like, really? Me? A liquor salesman? So, but out of nowhere, I get a call from Newburgh, New York, WGNY at station that I'd also sent the tape to. This is also radio. And I was like, I literally took a pay cut to take the job there as news director from being a secretary at a liquor distributor in Astoria, Queens.
Wow.
Like I was like living the high life. Every Friday I would get free booze. Like he'd let me go down to the It was, but I had to do it, right? I had to follow my dream. So then I went from Newburgh, then I came down to White Plains for 10 months in radio. Then I went back up to Poughkeepsie and I worked up there. Then I got a TV in Poughkeepsie. And then in 2001, finally, I got the gig at New York One, made it back home. So it took me about 10 years to get home.
So you're grinding there, and you finally make the jump to TV there. Was that due to that whoever was news director on that television station happened to hear you on the radio, or how was it a tough transition there?
Yeah, it was like the radio station I work at was in, if you're ever upstate, it's WPDH. It's a classic rock station, really popular. Everybody wants the t-shirts, like at events and stuff. No matter where you go, hey, you got a t-shirt. Like I'm carrying around 100 t-shirts in the back of my car. But it was really a fun place. It really helped me because the two morning show hosts were stand-up comics, and they were actually great guys. They became great friends, and they were very funny. But they taught me how to like work off of somebody. I didn't really get a chance to do that at the other places, but these guys, they were relentless. Like I'd read the newscast and they'd stop me and they'd make fun of me and they'd, throw stuff at me. I mean, literally one time they brought a dominatrix in and she was actually like hitting me as I read the newscast. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. You can't even make it up because it was Poughkeepsie, right? It was a crazy town. But
I went to Marist. I know.
So you probably knew WPDH.
I
did. Noah's Ark, right? And Mulcahy, well, not Mulcahy, he's Maroonies, right? I forgot the name, but there's a bunch of places. That was my life.
Matrix too.
I think her name was Rock Royce or something like that. She was like, it was. I mean, I was like, when I was up there, it was a totally different lifestyle. Like, I remember, like, I was hanging out with, like, these bikers invited me to their clubhouse, and I was hanging out with bikers and an Ozzy Osbourne cover band. I mean, it was just, everything was like a different, like, universe. It was actually a lot of fun. I had a great time, and I learned a lot. But the one thing is that, we got the New York stations up there, and I'm watching, and I see Eyewitness News and 2 and 4, and then all of a sudden New York One comes on, on. And sometimes I'd come back and visit and I'd watch New York One and I'd be like, this is crazy. I got to get to this place. Yeah. Like, I got to go home. I can't, and it was the quest, it's like I had to make it home and I did. So that was good. Thank God, took a while, but I made it.
So I want to talk New York One, but first, I mean, you got some family in Florida, nice and warm there. You're from New York City here, freezing in the winter. You go to school in one of the coldest places on earth. And then you work in upstate New York as well. So tell me a little bit about those really cold winters you had in school and that in radio.
I feel like, it's funny when you're in college, it doesn't bother you as much. You're young, you might be having a few beers from time to time, right? You'd go, like, I remember walking from the dorms to the bars, like in Syracuse, with a t-shirt because you didn't want to lose someone to steal your denim jacket. This is the 80s, 90s. So I must have had like 3 jackets stolen at like Hungry Charlie's bar in Marshall Street in Syracuse. So like you don't even care. Now, that being said, when you become an adult, right? And I remember, so I didn't have my license when I got to Oneonta. So it was hilarious. My boss, the news director, would drive me to town meetings or county meetings, but I'd have to find my way back. So I would like beg like the local town board member, oh, could you take me back into town? So finally I bought a 79 Dodge Diplomat for $500 that I paid off in installments to my program director with bald tires. And the Oneonta was a half hour from Cooperstown, where the Hall of Fame is.
Of course.
But Cooperstown was also where it was the county seat for Otsego County. So I would have to go to like court cases there. Like I covered 2 murder trials, which was pretty fascinating, actually, up close like that. But driving that road in the snow with bald tires at a 79 Dodge Diplomat was one of the most horrifying things I've ever done in my life. I spun off that road so many times. I was lucky to get killed. I just learned how to drive. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm in this old piece of crap car it was crazy. So like, that's when winter started to me, was like, winter is not fun anymore. Yes. It went from like snowball fights to walking with a t-shirt in the snow, who cares, to, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, yeah, basically that's like how it happened,
Yeah. So at least, I mean, you got out of there. You don't have to worry about snow in September. and snow in May. So, but you come back, you finally get home. You're in New York. How did that opportunity come about for you? What was it like for you to reach out to them, and how did your first, let's say your first week or first month go?
Well, I was lucky because Kristen Shaughnessy, who was an anchor for many years in NY1, worked where I worked upstate. She was from upstate. So she would periodically call when there was an opening. So she called my first job was for the first 3 years. I was the Staten Island reporter.
Yep.
She called and said, "What do you know about Staten Island?" And I said, "Oh, well, my dad lives there. I know a lot about Staten Island." She goes, "Send a tape now, right now." Like she was like, because they basically just wanted someone who knew where it was, right? I mean, face it. I mean, when you're from there, you get it.
Yeah.
But some people have never been there. It's ridiculous. I still can't believe how many people I meet who are like, Staten Island, what? Where? I went there on the way to Great Adventure, or Atlantic City.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
What annoys me the most is
it.
when you like are like, oh, from Staten Island. They're like, is that near Long Island? Like, no, it's two different things. Stop.
There are 5 boroughs in New York City, not 4, 5.
Yeah, I mean, I never got it. I mean, it's like whatever. But I mean, but it was good. So it was funny that I actually took it. They gave me a Staten Island quiz when I went to apply for the job, and I got every question right except for one, and that was, how much does the ferry cost? Now, when I left in 1992, it was 50 cents. But then Giuliani cut it, right? So he could get the vote on Staten Island.
Yep.
So I'm like, so I remember saying, holy shit, the ferry's free there?
Yeah.
It's been free.
Like, I was like, that's cool. But that was the only one. Everything else was like, name the high schools. I'm like, yeah, Curtis, Wagner, blah, blah, blah. So that was really what got me the job. I don't think it had anything to do with my on-air talent, skills, or anything. I literally just knew where Staten Island was.
That's an incredible story with the quiz there, and that's pretty awesome. Yeah, the problem with the ferry is, I mean, it's free, but to get to the ferry, you're either paying to take the train, very slow, 40 minutes, or you're parking a ton. So, and then you got to pay on the other side of it. So it's like, it's free, but is it really free?
Yeah, is it real? Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny, but sometimes I would argue with my mom and I go stay with my dad. And at that time, he lived in Dungan Hills on Seaview Avenue. So I'd walk to go to Stuyvesant in Manhattan. I would walk to the rail station, right? And I would take that to the ferry and then a subway. It was like 2 hours to get to and from school. Yeah. I mean, it was better than dealing with my mother at the time. So it was worth it. But she's a crazy woman from the Bronx. That's a whole other story.
Joe loves the Bronx.
I love the Bronx.
So, Roger, for you, what is the most memorable, fun event you've gotten to cover? And I'm sure there's probably a lot, but if you want to give us a few that really stand out to you, or like, wow, I can't believe I got to do this assignment. It was so cool, so fun.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just talking with someone about this last week. I think I was about 3 years in, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but Harlem Little League went to the Little League World Series, and so they sent me to Williamsport on, thinking like I'd be there for like 2 days. They'd lose and that was it. I was there for a week. They kept winning. So I'm staying in this hotel like outside of Williamsport. It was the craziest, but it was so cool because I'm such a big baseball freak. And it was just fun to, like, when I'd be done with my assignment, I would just go sit, like, buy a hot dog and a pretzel and watch baseball.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. So it always stands out as one of my favorites. I think I was a couple of weeks ago was Fleet Week, and I was thinking back to the time they flew us out in a helicopter and landed us on one of those amphibious assault vessels, and we got to ride it into town, and that was pretty exciting. Just being like those places. I mean, because those ships are crazy. Yeah. It's like a city. So that was good. So those are some of the things that always stand out to me, and meeting some cool people along the way. Like, right before the pandemic, I brought Debbie Harry into the studio, and people were like, it was like really exciting to have her there. Getting to meet some people who you look up to and admire. I mean, I've interviewed like Darryl Strawberry, Doc Gooden years ago, and just all these people. I went down to spring training, and Keith Hernandez was there. So even though he was a little standoffish, but I did get the interview, so I was happy with that.
Yeah, I have a cousin who went to Williamsport back in 2003. He was on the Boynton Beach team, Florida, and they lost to Japan. They got smacked. But
man! Also, they made it all the way to the international final.
They made it to the international final. It was 2003, and I'll never forget it. And it was quite a very weird experience because it's like that place. It's obviously its own little league, right? So it's like they play. You live in central Pennsylvania in the middle of Amish country over there. You're playing little league baseball, but then for that 2 week period, I mean, you have so many people coming there from all over the world, and every little hotel and motel across the street. It's like this own little town. It's booked, and yeah, it's quite the experience. And again, like I said, I didn't play. My cousin played there at the time, but you don't realize how unique of an experience it is unless you do it. So
Yeah. I saw you with the hotel I stayed at. I shouldn't even be telling the story, but there was a hotel bar, and so it closed like at 11 or something, and the rest of the guys went upstairs. It was like three of us, and then and I was like eating some wings, and the bartender said, "Hey, do you want to go out after this?" And I said, "Where?" And literally this place was called Ye Old Tavern, and it was a couple of miles down the road. Drove me in like a Jeep, and went there. And I was like, I must be out of my mind. How did I know they were really going to take me to a bar
Right.
and not
Yeah.
abduct me? Like, you just really didn't know. But it turned out to actually be a lot of fun. They're like, "Hey, this is Roger. He works from a TV station." Hey, like they're actually really nice.
Yeah, just like
Yeah, it was funny. It was, yeah. I'm not sure the next day was nice, but it
Yeah.
was,
So
you know how that works.
little hungover there. So Roger, I know Joe mentioned the top, some of your experiences down on Mulberry Street with the San Gennaro feasts and whatnot. So what's it like covering those type of your special attraction events where you really can't move around, you're like shoulder to shoulder, and what's the story that you're trying to tell?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously being part Italian, I have an appreciation for the feast. It's a great old tradition. In fact, I took Jack, my son, down there a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to explain to him how it had shrunk. How
Yeah.
Little Italy was. It's very little, littler. Um,
terrible.
but it's what when when we are at the feast though, at night and the lights are on and everything, it almost transports you back.
Right.
Like you
I can
almost
tell.
feel like, yeah, and it's almost like going to Arthur Avenue too. I think it's a
Yeah.
very similar thing. Like you feel like it's a Bronx tale for that couple of blocks.
So
You feel like
yeah.
Chaz Palminteri is going to come over and talk to you.
So Joe has big ties to Little Italy, and he also has a great Tony Danza story to share with you.
Oh, from the
Right.
cheese store.
From the cheese store. That place is called Aleva. I don't know if you remember it offhand, but no, my dad grew up down there, and I remember one year I was doing the San Gennaro feast, and I've worked the feast a couple of times, for this friend, that friend, just one of those things. But I remember one year I was working in Aleva, and I worked the whole feast, which is the whole 10 days. Starts from Thursday, goes through the first weekend. Then it goes to the following Sunday. It's usually the third week of September, so the weather's out pretty nice out. But I was working outside at Leva, and so my dad knows a couple people, here and there because he grew up down there, and he got to know Tony a bit when he was younger, and they're friends and not super close, but if he's walking around the neighborhood every now and then, I used to run into him every now and then when I was younger, and I was with him, my dad. But one year I worked on Aleva, and Tony kind of came in surprisingly, and he's like, "Yo, kid, move over." And we ended up working the grill together, and we were making sausage, peppers, and onion sandwiches and serving everybody. And
That's amazing.
it took everybody about 10 to 15 minutes before they realized, wait a minute, is that Tony Danza over there? So everybody was walking in. Again, this is the middle of the week too. I think it was like a Wednesday night. So it's like, you don't really expect that. It was the boss, and I have pictures to prove it. So, we'll get into that eventually. But yeah, I do have ties to that area very, very well.
And he was good friends with the owner of Aleva, right? It was the mayor, really, of yeah. And I got a chance to meet. You probably knew him too. I got a couple years ago, Vinny Peanuts.
Peanut, yeah. My dad knows everybody down there.
So. Yeah. So it was yeah, it was good. It's I don't know. I kind of have this appreciation for old New York, and I guess a lot of it is kind of disappearing. So it's nice to have a little bit of that looking back. It's like I go up to Gino's pastry shop on Arthur Avenue, and when Jack was little, I'd bring him in, and Jerome, the owner, whose dad was Gino, like, we'll have him come back around, and he gives him a hug, and he says, what do you want? And he goes, you want a cannoli? And he goes, I like rainbow cookies. And he goes, well, how about I make you a rainbow cookie cannoli? And he takes the rainbow cookies and squishes them into the cannoli.
That's great.
And Jack is like, oh my God, like, this
Wow.
is the greatest thing of all time. But like, where else do you get that? People don't do that at chain places, or like you just don't get that anymore. You don't go to a bakery and they give you a cookie. Remember that? You went to a bakery, you're a kid, you get a cookie.
Yeah.
And I miss that. I do miss that. I miss that kind of stuff, you know?
Joe, I
No,
think
it's
you,
the truth.
I think you, me, and Roger need to go to that bakery and see what we could create with the custom.
Absolutely. So Nick is between the two of us, Nick is the foodie, right? So he's got a passion for going around and likes reviewing places, likes doing the taste testing stuff and like that. So I mean, he hasn't really, I mean, he usually hits like buffets and like a lot of famous restaurants and stuff. And, you know, recently he did something for L&B, and obviously L&B is still one of those iconic places, and it's in Brooklyn, which you would know nothing about. So, but
He doesn't know anything about Brooklyn. That's
no, he knows nothing about Brooklyn.
I think you're onto something here, John. These
No, I
sound like
agree.
these sound like some great videos potentially for New York One Digital. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, if you need somebody who's a foodie who's going to review some of these iconic places around, you know, Nick would be your guy.
Well, what do you think's the best pizza in Brooklyn? Because L&B, right, is a no-brainer, but then a lot of people love the Farah, and then there's like places like Lenny's, just like a simple place as Pizza Wagon in Bay Ridge, right?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, like, you know, L&B's, you're not going there for the regular slice, so it's different.
No.
So
No,
I
it's square,
I like Grimaldi's, but it's very
Yeah,
different.
that was right,
It's very
right under the
small.
Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, right under the
Totono's. Totono's was good. I don't think it's opening. I think they haven't reopened, but since the pandemic. But Totono's is great. Over in
Totono's is
Coney
good.
Island.
You mentioned DeFar's the owner died a couple weeks ago. Right?
Yeah, that was sad. I know. I feel bad.
Yeah,
I feel that was a shame. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, because there's just not a lot of that. There's not a lot of that left, you know.
no.
There's some good stuff in Bensonhurst. There's you know, the famous hero shop. Was it called Leone's? It's an old. I mean, it's like you walk in there and, you know, they're rude to you, but it's the best sandwich you ever had.
Hey, what do you want? Hurry up.
I know. I felt like I was like, yeah. That's like, there's a pizza place in Queens, New Park Pizza in Howard Beach,
I knew
on Cross Bay Boulevard. You're like, you better have your order ready, or this guy's like, next. You know?
Yeah. So we're gonna move on here. Got a little sidetracked with the food stuff.
Sorry, I know.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're fine.
That
You're
happens
fine.
on New York One. I start talking about food at the end of every segment. Doesn't matter what we're doing.
You're just like Nick.
Yeah, it's like,
get
oh,
a
terrible
line.
case down here at the court, and he's gonna be 10 to 15 years, but I'm gonna get my hot dog and taking me back to
No,
my
it's true.
days.
Yesterday, I was at an art museum in Long Island City, and the girl grew up in Woodside, and she went to middle school in Astoria. And I said, "Oh, you must know Rose and Joe's, the bakery that has pizza in the back." She goes, "Oh my God, I love Rose and Joe's." So we start talking about it instead of the museum.
That's
So
funny.
stupid.
All right. Anyway, so
Sorry.
moving on.
I did it
We're good.
again.
No, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. You mentioned before you got to meet some relatively famous New York Mets players, right? You mentioned Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden, key components for the '86 team. So you are a huge baseball fan yourself. I hear you're a prolific men's softball player. Now, Nick and I, we made our championship game last year in softball, and unfortunately we lost because we ended up getting screwed, which I'll explain that to you in a minute. He's nodding his head over there. But you are a prolific men's softball player.
I mean,
so,
I'm aging sadly, but yeah.
but we do have room for one more person on our team. We may need a sub tomorrow, so if you have any interest in subbing for us,
On Staten Island?
go right ahead.
course.
Right on Staten Island, yeah. But yeah. So you're a softball player. Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, you know, I was a horrible high school baseball player, and then, you know, that was the natural extension. Once I realized I wasn't going to be in the majors, you know, you play softball. So I played with my buddies in Queens. I played upstate when I was up there, and it's just great. You know, most recently I played for my bar up here in Yorkville, Rife's Tavern, but the league stopped during the pandemic, and we never got back in. So I haven't played for a couple of summers. I've been kind of bummed about it, but
So you're a
I
free
miss it.
agent.
I'm totally a free agent.
What position,
right now,
Roger?
you know? I'm also 54 though, by the way. So.
Do you pitch, Roger? What do you play? What pitch position?
I mostly second base and outfield. You know, my shortstop and third base days are over because my arm's a little shot. So I like second is a little bit of a better throw for me.
Right.
But I was, you know, I was all right. I played, you know, it was weird. The best. Well, I love this. The team I played on in Queens, we made it to the championship, and my best friend John's brother Mike was the captain of the team, whatever you want to call it. And we was a best of 3 series, and we won the first game. And then after the game, he's like, "All right, boys, what kind of jackets are we getting?"
Oh, jinxed it.
I was like, what's wrong with you? He's like, I don't know, leather sleeves. Like he's going. I'm like, stop it, stop. Of course, we get swept the next 2 games.
Was lost too.
So I'll never forgive this guy for hey, really? You have to talk about the jackets.
Yeah.
So stupid.
It's frustrating game sometimes. It's fun though. I mean, right now I'm coming off a doubleheader performance this past weekend as I was recording, where I went 9 for 10. I went 5 for 5 in the first game.
Wow. So you're like a professional hitter.
I mean, I get on base, but I'm also a dominant pitcher. Joe likes to call me Jacob DeGrom of the softball.
Is it arc or modified?
Modified.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I throw it so slow, and it makes everybody go crazy.
Oh, because because the timing's off.
Yeah. So do my best. I've been wanting to ask you, really, all people who work on TV, when you're jumping around from city to city, or whatever. What's that process like? You come into the studio, you're in the newsroom, they're saying, go out here. And then how does that work? You get on the subway? Are you driving a vehicle? Are you taking your own car? How's that work for you on a daily basis?
Well, it's changed a lot. Before the pandemic, I'd wake up, I would take a cab to Chelsea to New York 1. I live on the Upper East Side. And then hook up with my photographer. And then we get in a vehicle together and go to wherever place. And then usually afterwards, then we go shoot the story for the next day. Now, since the pandemic, it totally changed. Now my day is, I'm on the show and I introduce any piece that I put together. Then now they have us take the car ourselves, the reporters. I go shoot by myself on my phone, come back home where I'm sitting now, and I edit on my iPad. I edit my own pieces.
Wow. Then
I write a web story, and then I'm done. So the days got way longer over the past couple of years. Like it just, it is what it is. Hey, I'm saying I'm still doing good work and putting together good stuff, but definitely the workflow totally changed over the past couple of years. Like the philosophy is that they want us doing, a little bit more.
So what's the worst traffic you sat in to go to cover a story? Yeah,
it's been bad. I mean, you guys probably noticed it's just gotten worse. I mean, even
terrible.
This morning, it's sad. I really take pride in being on time for assignments. And I had a 10 o'clock appointment in Brooklyn Heights, right off of the Brooklyn Bridge at Cadman Plaza. I left Central Park on the east side at 8:30. I didn't get there till 10:15. 10:15. That was like an hour and 45. It should not take that long. So there's a lot more people in their cars. I mean, look, I could take the blame too. I'm in a car, right? But it wouldn't work for me to take public transit from story to story, because sometimes I have to make several stops. I don't know if you ever guys have seen, but sometimes I'll do these crazy stories where I go to multiple locations, or I do this thing end of the line where I take a train to the last stop on a train, and then I bop around the neighborhood. I couldn't do it without a car. I just couldn't. It'd be impossible.
So it's all fake. You're not really taking the train. You're lying to us.
Well, I take the train, for the train part, but then I have to park my car.
So are you taking your personal vehicle, or you have a New York 1 truck?
They let us take home at the very beginning because they wanted to separate us.
Yeah.
They didn't want us in the same vehicle. So they let me take it home. And I've had that since for a couple of years, which is good. While parking, obviously is not fun on the Upper East Side. But again, it's the thing is that my workflow couldn't work if I didn't have that, because I could be doing a story on Arthur Avenue, and then once I'm done with the show at 8:30, I have to go to Tottenville.
Yeah, you got to go see your
Like that has
friends.
actually happened, you know? So then when will I ever get done?
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
So, yeah.
That's impossible. So for you, what would you say is the worst shift time-wise to work? I mean, the 6 a.m.s, or everyone usually always hates those, or the early morning, you get up at 4 o'clock. But for you, maybe you got a family, so maybe you don't want to work late at night. But for you, what kind of shift is like not your preference to do? Something you'd want to?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to work. I wouldn't want to work nights. I always preferred, almost my entire career, I've done the mornings.
Yeah.
Because I don't mind waking up early. I'm kind of an early riser anyway. You do get used to it. I mean, like tonight's going to suck because the Rangers, well, we don't want to talk about date this, but like say there's a sporting event.
Recorded this. The Rangers game was going to be this evening.
Right. Exactly. I should do. But yeah, games that go extra innings.
No.
Oh, when the Jets are on Monday or Sunday Night Football, which I hate, then you're a little sleepy the next day. But other than that, I don't mind it. It's not that bad. But then working nights I would have missed all that stuff. So I'd rather get everything done early, and then I could still like take my son to baseball practice, or like yesterday was great. I got done like around 4 with my work, editing and everything. And we just went up to Central Park and shot some hoops, and I threw a couple, wiffle balls to him, and that was good. That's my favorite thing to do.
Sounds like a perfect day, if you ask me. Does it get?
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to play me. He's like, "Let's do 1v1." I'm like, "Oh God!" So like, I'm feeling it a little bit today. I haven't played 1-on-1 in a while. I mean, and then he was bragging that he beat me when I was like, "Dude, I could have beat you 11-0. Give me a break." But let him think that I wasn't trying. It's okay. Now he probably would. He's pretty good. He's not that bad. I coached him this year. It was funny. It was quite an experience. The world of Upper East Side sports is insane because like people are so wealthy up here that they don't really care. So like guys would be calling me on Friday night like, "Oh, Nathaniel will not be there tomorrow because we're going skiing."
Yes.
You're telling me the night before the game?
Well, and then I know all too well about that because I manage our 2 softball teams, and people tell me around an hour before the game, maybe 10 minutes before, why not make it? I'm like, we got to have 10 people. We can't be taking the automatic out. It's a real pain.
That's the worst. The automatic out.
But I umpire Little League, and I see the coaches all the time like, "Oh, little Johnny over here is not here yet. We only got 7. Can we play the game?" So it's tough.
No, it's and youth sports is so crazy because thank God. Well, it was funny. He did flag football and basketball in the winter, and my family basically said you can only coach one because we do not want you going insane. So I picked basketball over the flag football because the year before I coached flag football, we were like, we didn't win a game. And it was very, I don't think it was totally my fault. I was more like the defensive coordinator, but, so basketball was fun, but baseball I don't do, but man, baseball is, I mean, we go to these tournaments. These people are crazy. I mean, they're out of their minds.
Parents are out of their minds.
I mean, I don't even want to say, but even on, this parent, a parent shouldn't be on the field with his kid as he's warming up for the game. Like if I'm the coach, I'm like, excuse me, I got this.
That's absolutely wild.
Or walking up to them in the dugout after every at bat, like, why didn't you do this? It's crazy. These kids are gonna have these head cases. It's terrible.
So maybe you've had some I'm right moments in your coaching career, but in your broadcasting career, we got to ask you what your I'm right moment is. And what we mean by that is a time where you wanted to do something, you ask somebody for advice, they say, Roger, I don't think so. That seems like a bad idea. And you were like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately you will see why it is that I'm right.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Oh gosh, you guys stumped me here. Yeah, I knew the theme of the show. I probably should have been more prepared.
Hard-hitting journalism here.
No, that's good. Oh gosh,
it could be more of a personal thing, dude. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to your career. Maybe it's like you wanted to pursue the career, and someone was like, "Nah, don't do that. Go be a secretary." And you were like, "You know what? Maybe I'll do alcohol distribution, and then I'll get into journalism."
Well, you have to be careful with that because one time I said, I almost became a liquor distributor. The guy was like, "Oh, I'm a wine salesman." I felt like a total jerk. You gotta be careful. It's a good career. Those guys, I mean, tell you, they made these people like most of the time they weren't even working because it was an exclusive distributor. So everything just sold itself. So it was like, wow, they called me from like, Hawaii. Hey,
Speaking of Hawaii,
oh
I got a nice Hawaiian shirt on. So.
Wow, I knew. That's nice. I've never been there. I've only seen it in the Brady Bunch episode.
Went on my honeymoon, 2019. Very nice.
Wow, that's a good honeymoon.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Oh man. So what was my? I know you're right. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys.
If you're drawing a blank, it's no worries.
No, but you're gonna add no. But
we'll get back to you at the end with your right moment, one with your last words. But for now, we could just we know you're a huge fan of the Mets and the Rangers and the Knicks, just like me, and a big fan of the Jets, just like Joe. Joe also a Rangers and Knicks fan. First, I gotta ask you, with your Queens ties, how often did you go to Mets games, and how often do you still go to Mets games?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I went a lot more. It was so cheap, and you could even I don't know. It just seemed like it was more readily available to be able to go to the games. Not as much these, and I probably will this year actually went to opening day and then I caught a double header. So I guess technically I've been to 3 so far. It's it's a little more pricey bringing a family, with that, but it's not, I like to try. Also, I think it also depended on the season. Like I think I love this team this year. They're so fun to watch, and I kind of I keep saying to Jack, my son, I'm like, let's go to the Mets game. Let's go to the Mets game. But it's not that simple. There's a whole process that's involved with going. It's not like when I was a kid, I used to it was $2 to sit up in the upper deck, and I used to go by myself.
I miss Shay.
I know I'm old, but I would go see Seaver. Tom Seaver was my favorite player. So once they got rid of him, which was tragic, and I cried, but once he would come back into town with the Reds, and I would always make sure to go. And my mom was. It's funny. My mom was very strict, but she was also kind of liberal about stuff like that. So the idea of a 10-year-old kid just going on the subway by himself to Shea Stadium and going to a Mets game, didn't faze her at all.
Wow. Imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine you to your son, go to the game. No shot.
Different
I didn't want to let him walk 2 blocks to school.
It was
crazy. I was nervous. Yeah.
But
back then, yeah.
Those are your 4 teams. So, the Mets, maybe New York One could hook you up with a suite or something, get you in the Hyundai Club, bring along Joe and I. But between the Mets, Jets, Rangers, and Knicks, I want you to rank 1 through 4, which one you want to see win a championship most. So 1 would be the one you definitely want to see win. 4 you want to see win, but you want to see the other 3 do it first.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I have. Yeah, I mean, I have to go by, I guess, I'd say Mets, Jets, Rangers, Knicks.
All right. How about you?
The Knicks, the Knicks, I've fallen. They've aggravated me for so many years that at this point, but I feel I'm tied to all of those teams, but I feel maybe the Mets is that's my life. It's really.
I'm the same way. I want to see the Mets win the most. I'll go Rangers number 2, Knicks 3, Giants 4, just because I've seen them win before, so they'll go to last. The other 3 never seen win anything. We're close with the Rangers. We'll say, Joe, give us your 4 rankings. Of course, you're a Yankee fan, and then take us home here.
Obviously, the Rangers are going to be number 1. The Jets number 2. It'd be fun to watch a Jets Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You're never going to see it happen, unfortunately, for you guys.
I'm going to put the Knicks 3 only because I feel like I say this all the time. I think the one championship that would just totally obliterate the city would be the Knicks. Yeah. The city would be destroyed. There would be happy rioting in the street with cars on fire if the Knicks were to ever win a championship. So just for the logistic purposes of what you would have to do to cover it, especially for New York 1. And then we'll put the Yankees last because I've seen 5 championships. I was at the 09 parade. So now I want to see them win every year. They're going to win 100 games every year.
Roger, I gotta ask you, any of your teams win a championship, are you calling up their director right away and be like, I'm doing the parade. Don't even think about calling Dean Eminger. It's mine. I need to be there on the Kennedy Heroes doing the parade.
Yeah, no, I think that's gonna have to be, I had an old boss who used to make me beg him to do opening day. I'd be like, I'm the biggest Mets fan here. Why do you I think it was more like a power trip thing. like I would see like, oh, so and so is going to be covering opening day, and I walk into his office like, what? And we used to talk about the Mets. I'm like, what is wrong? Like, what? He goes, oh, fine. Like, but it was all, I could just see he just wanted me to come in bed,
Right,
you
right.
know, which is pretty horrible actually. But anyway, it is what it is. Still thinking
Right.
about I'm right.
Right.
Maybe that was my I'm right.
That could have
I was
been
gonna
it.
say that was
That could've
definitely
been
it.
Like I'm like, I'm the only one. Like I will be able to like competently talk about the Mets team and series and the history. Why would someone else go there? So maybe yeah. And I think it probably worked out. I probably, sometimes I get a little emotional, but I'm also able to go to Yankee Stadium and talk baseball. Like I could talk about baseball. Like this year they sent me to spring training, and
Nice.
then I went to Tampa, and people are like, "Oh, that must suck." I'm like, "No, I get to watch baseball and talk about baseball. I don't care what team it is." I
You
mean,
have
of
to be
course, it
nice
was
and
fun.
warm down in Tampa Bay in March.
Oh yeah, it was fun. Oh yeah, the poor photographer I was with, I kept taking him to the same sports bar every for dinner.
Joe
He
was
like,
down there too in March.
How great is Steinbrenner Field? It's across the street from Raymond James and the Bucks, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice facility. Not a lot of people realize that.
I didn't even know that. I know.
It's a nice 10,000 seat facility, and it's Yankee Stadium South. The people that packed that place for spring training, and I went 3 years ago in 2019, the people who were there, I'm from Westchester. I'm from Jersey. I'm from North Jersey. I'm from Central Jersey. I'm from South Jersey. I'm from the Bronx. I'm from Queens. I'm from Brooklyn. I moved here 15 years ago. I moved here 30 years ago. It was the best decision I've ever made in my whole life. We've been coming to Yankee games down here forever. How great is that? It was with the Yankees, and it wasn't Point St. Lucie. How fun was that?
No, it was good. If anything, it's funny because I didn't get we were there at Port St. Lucie for a couple of days. I didn't get to see any batting practice. So we went straight to Tampa after being on the morning show, drove 3 hours, and then literally went into the field. The first thing I see is Judge taking batting practice, and of course I had the press pass, so I'm standing right by the cage. It's unbelievable to see the power. Like I don't care if he's not my team, but it was him and then Stanton, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! How hard they hit the ball! Like if you're a baseball fan, it's just the coolest thing to be able to witness that up close. They're like Willie Randolph walks by, hey guys, I'm like Willie Randolph, holy crap! Like it's just cool. It's just it's a cool experience, and I'm glad that it was cool. It took a long time for me to cover spring training. I probably thought I would be doing it 30 years ago, but it was a good finally that happened. Like, and it was a lot of hard work, and I was nonstop, and I just never stopped. They had me on the morning show, the noon show, and the night show, which was crazy. But you know what? It was great. Like it was worth it. It was totally worth it.
Last question from me, and then we're going to let you go. Sadly, this was a lot of fun. But at the
Yeah.
beginning, you mentioned you were a drummer. So I want to ask, do you still do that as a hobby? What was your experience like back when you were drumming? And you mentioned the Sex Pistols, and you love punk rock music. So I wanted to ask if that's your favorite band. And if that is not your favorite band, but one of your favorite bands, who are your other favorite groups and musicians?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I technically I'm still in a band called Perp Walk, but we haven't played in a couple of years, just, stupid pandemic. But yeah, I love playing. It's a good outlet. We played at some small clubs and some funky places, and I've been playing since high school. I had a band in high school, but band wise, I mean, it started with like the classic rock stuff, obviously. Like, so figure I'm 54, so I'm growing up and I'm listening to like still the Doors and the Who and the Kinks and the Beatles and the Stones, like. All that good stuff. And then as time went by, I learned about the Clash and, the Sex Pistols and the Buzzcocks. And then I like, believe it or not, I actually like hardcore music, which is like the really crazy punk stuff. That's like, yeah, there's some good, there's actually, yeah, there's tons of bands there's bands from Staten Island too. And Murphy's Law, Gnostic Front, bands like that. There's a good band from Staten Island called Enrage, I think they're called.
Enrage, interesting.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, no, so I love so I'm a rock guy. I mean, anything that rocks, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, I like Springsteen, which punk rock guys don't understand that. They're like, how do you like that guy? I'm like, well, because he's young. He's bruised. I like Billy Joel. I mean, I like Springsteen better than Billy Joel, but Van Halen, I like metal, like Motley Crue. I'm going to see Motley Crue, Def Leppard in a couple of weeks at Citi Field. So that's gonna be weird.
So when you say
if they're still alive,
Wait, when you say hardcore music, do you mean bands like Scream? And there's a band here that I used to listen to when I was younger. They're like H2O. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
there you go.
H2O. Yeah, along those lines, like really
There you
crazy
go.
stuff, like da da da. Yeah, I like Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax. I've like kind of like embraced a lot of different genres of rock over the years, like when they be. But so like it's hard to even say what my favorite groups are, but I love music though. Like my favorite thing to do during the week, like when I finally have time to myself, like I will take a long walk in Central Park and just put my music on and relax that way. It's a good way to do it. It kind of, I feel like, especially, you guys probably had this happen. Like, remember like in high school or like you go through some tough times and you have that song or that artist that you could listen to and it really like kind of brings you back to like reality a little bit. So thank God. Like for me, it was the Kinks and Bruce Springsteen back then. And then you get a little older and it's fun. Music's great. I like music. I like movies. I'm a science fiction geek, so I like Star Wars and Star Trek and all that crap. And
you're just like my grandma. My grandma loves sci-fi stuff. And listen, I like soft rock and I like violent rock too. So I understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand that.
You have to, right? You have to have a little, like I have this one Spotify mix that's like, I have like the Hooters on there and like Alan Parsons Project. I was like weird crap, my son's like, what is this? Like, don't worry about it.
It's all right. He'll learn. He'll learn eventually. But Raj, thank you again for doing this interview with us. Really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. It feels good to talk to somebody who's real true blue New Yorker like yourself.
Thanks.
You gotta hit Brooklyn now. You gotta get to know the borough a little bit better. It seems like you really know the other four, but we'll get to that eventually. But again, thank you again for doing this with us. Hopefully you can come on again and do this with us again.
Yeah,
soon.
anytime, guys. Anytime.
Let's go Rangers at the time of this recording. Hopefully the Mets or the Jets can bring a championship to you. But what we do here is we always give our guests the last word. So if there's anything else you would like to share, if there's anything else you would like to promote, by all means, go ahead. The floor is all yours. Once again, we appreciate this and we'll stay in touch and hopefully we could have you on again in the future.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, I just hope everybody, just enjoy. Hopefully it's going to be a nice, peaceful summer in New York City and get out there and get out there and enjoy all the good stuff that we have to offer here. Like what do we talk about this whole, we got the best pizza, we have bagels, we have great parks, a lot of hidden gems, seek them out, go find them, whether on Staten Island, the Bronx, Brooklyn, right? I mean, go find like, there's places that you just don't even know exist in this town and they're there. And like, that's what I do for my job and I love it. So go find them.
All right. Roger that. Cannot disagree with that.
He's been waiting for 60 minutes to say that.
You know it. It finally made sense to say it there. But Roger, it's been a real pleasure. And that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. So for our very special guest, NY1's Roger Clark, and my co-host Joe Calabrese. I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.